All right. Back at it. Today we got
Back
an
at it.
action-packed show. Action-packed show. But before we get into this, we must bring up the most important thing you can do as a player if you're really looking to start to get your name out there, because our players that we've done this for is getting a ton of traction. Don't be distracted by my crazy hairdo today. I don't know what's going on, but this is important. If you go to myfootballcamps.com/D1, both me and Mike Farrell, the guy right in front of me, on my right, some people's left, depending on how you're looking at this. We are doing promotions for players, and it's going out on all of our platforms. We started out as like, hey, we're just going to put it on our main platform, and now we're putting it out if we do this video for you everywhere. So it's not just like, me and Mike are pretty big on Twitter. I have a huge following on TikTok. It's everywhere. So we're doing these promos that are really enhancing the visibility of you as a recruit, especially a lot of these players that we've worked with that are on the verge, that are very close, and some have already gotten offered, like Carson Kruger. I know we talked about it last week. And guys are really starting to gain a ton of traction, especially getting the classmen. We encourage you, the younger you are, the better it is for you to start early. Okay, we don't mind. Obviously, we're trying to help a lot of the players that are later on in this process, because a lot of them have come to us from that standpoint. But believe me, if you're younger, the earlier we get started, the better it will be for you.
Well, and if this was available, 5 years ago, those guys coming to us late wouldn't probably have to. We just did a quarterback from Washington State who's, to me, FCS level.
I agree.
But the weird part is, you start off obviously wanting to be Power 5 or FBS, but sometimes you fall off that radar. But then sometimes you fall straight to the D3 level, and the FCS schools don't, pay attention to you. You can fall that far. So now that he's been put out there, he's back to the FCS level, and he's getting attention. The video's doing well. And we do, this is a one-time. He chose the one time his dad did. And I retweet that numerous times, but the one time will help. And then we were learning that the 6 months and after the third or the second time, you start to get more traction. And, but yeah, I'm finding a lot of kids that are 2023s that are just, saying, is it too late? And I'm honest with them, say it might be. I don't know. But the only way to find out is to make an investment at this point in time and see if you can get because like I said to somebody yesterday, I was talking about the affiliate program to someone yesterday, which is, an opportunity for, coaches who work with kids. Everybody's got, from Southwest, from Southeast Express to, Ground Zero to all the 7-on-7 teams that deal with 4 and 5 stars, they still have kids on their roster that are being under recruited. Every 7-on-7 team has them. And they're playing with those kids and holding their own, but yet they may have, a small group of 5 offer or an FCS offer, and they can't blow up. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like, you put out a video of a kid in California, you don't know if some coach from Wofford is going to see it and is going to reach out to you because they're looking for your particular skill set. Maybe you're 5'9", 165-pound slot receiver, and you're not fast enough for USC, UCLA, or San Diego State and the others, but you're perfect for what they want to do. They'll find you because social media is that way, and they'll start following you, and they might DM you and reach out to you. And it just takes one. Because once you get one, then the rest sort of snowballs. So, I think what we're going to do is the younger kids are going to get this exposure early and not have as much of an issue. The 2026, we just did a 2026 running back linebacker from California. Hopefully with initial promotion through us, when 2026 comes around, he's not going to be like off the radar.
That's 100% the thing. And we just had Marshall sign up with us for the 6-month deal, and I think he's going to get a huge benefit for it as he really gets into the season. His clips start to come out more, and he does a great job of putting his clips so we can grab them. So so that combination is great. So they'll have the film for us, they'll have it ready, and we'll be able to go through everything, which I think is really, really nice. You
That's
know,
the
it's
other part too. Is like they're clients. Once you become a client, he and his dad tag me and stuff. If he's at a camp, I'll retweet it. I mean,
absolutely.
it's a retweet for me. Obviously, it's a balance with 155,000 followers that want college football information and want NFL draft information, recruiting information, the 5 stars. Um, to have an unknown younger kid retweeted in the feed, I might lose a follower or two. I doubt it, but it
I
doesn't
got it.
hurt, and it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt me either to retweet it. So once you become part of the family. um, Wow, the college football preseason coaches poll just came out. We'll talk about that next week. Who cares? We all know who's going to win. Um, you know, but it's like it's not a sales pitch. Like once you become a client, once you've actually invested money into us, I feel an obligation not to get you a scholarship. That's not my job. Not to make you a better football player, but to take you in as part of our client base. And that means, yes, you're paying for the one-time promotion or the 6-month promotion. And, we could do one time and that's it. We could do 6 times once every month. But if you're going to tag me and stuff, I'm going to retweet it. Now, if you tag me and stuff every day and it's the same thing, I can't retweet that. That's oversaturation. And I know the difference. But if you do tag me, that's extra promotion you're going to get because we consider you a client. It's not a family. Dave and I aren't related, but it's we like to run our business like Dabo Swinney. This is you're part of the group. So if you do sign up, you're going to get bonuses. Like I talked to the dad of the quarterback in Washington the other day. Um, and he was very thankful, and the kid was very thankful. And I said, listen, it's gone out once. I'm going to retweet it probably 5 or 6 more times this week. And that's the one time. I won't do it in August, like late August or September, but I will do it numerous times. So you pay for the one, but you're going to get like 6 in a short span of time. Now, what I think is important is to be on the radar in September. Don't disappear. And then you get, maybe 5 or 6 more retweets of new season video and go on and on and on. So we'll see if he signs up for the 1 year. Most have, and it's
Yep.
smart.
Most of.
Marshall's already getting attention. He's getting attention he didn't get before,
There's no
and he
doubt.
just started. So that's just the way it is. But I look at it as, listen, I'm not making my money anymore from flies in here. I'm not making my money anymore from corporate America. I'm working for myself, like you've been doing forever. And
Forever.
when you work for yourself, you take a personal pride in customer service. You know,
Absolutely.
I didn't have to do my customer service back in the day at Rivals was fans, and it was difficult because fans would get upset about stuff. Like if I said Arch Manning was a, 3-star, if his name was Arch Smith, it's hard to produce customer service for Texas fans because they hate you, they hate what you say. Now, if the kid decommitted and went to Alabama the next day, they'd agree with you. That's hard customer service because you're never going to appease a fan base ever. If I say something great about Arch Manning, Oklahoma fans are going to hate me. But this is different. This is customer service that we can provide. If the kid lands someplace, whether it's D3 or FCS, great. We want to know. And I guarantee you, we're going to have, this has just started. We're going to have kids, 5 years when we look back on this, that turn out to be, major college football players, whether they went FCS to the portal or FCS to the draft. And that's going to be the fun part too. Not all of them. I mean, obviously, we're going to hit maybe 5% of these kids are going to really, really have tremendous success at the highest level they want to. But a lot of them will have success at a level they're having fun at and getting their education paid for. And you may not get a lot of attention at, Townsend, but you're getting your education paid for and you're a football player. And that's a memory you're never going to forget.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. If you're interested, check out myfootballcamps.com/D1, which rolls into, I think we should go with the hot topic first, and then we could talk about your amazing defensive end and edge rusher list. But you could do whatever you like. I'll let you run with it.
No, I'll talk about Cale Gundy. I think this is a So if you haven't heard, Cale Gundy had to step down. He was given a choice to either be fired or resign. And every source that I've talked to has confirmed to me what happened. He was in a players' meeting. He grabbed an iPad of a player because the player wasn't paying attention, and he read aloud what was so important that the kid was typing to not pay attention to the meeting. And he shouldn't have done that. And once the second he got to a very, very bad, slanderous, insensitive word, he should have just stopped. But he read it out loud. It wasn't his word, it wasn't his writing, but it doesn't matter. He apologized, but it got up to the administration. There's a statement. I don't know if people can read that. It's pretty small.
I don't even know. Well, yeah,
that's a statement. But it got up to the administration, and the administration, is completely different than the athletic department and the football locker room. The players, and this is why I come up. If the players said, "Listen, this isn't right. This is wrong. He should be fired," I wouldn't say boo, because it really depends on how they determine and take this. So if somebody said, you make money off the backs of these kids for all your career and you're insensitive to their feelings. No, their feelings are, and they've come out on social media saying so, that this is a good guy. This is a coach that shouldn't have been fired or forced to resign. He made a mistake. We'd like to keep him. And players at his former schools are saying the same thing. So, and not just former schools, but other schools. Like, they're picturing, what if my coach did this and I lost my coach? So I think Oklahoma made a very, very big mistake here. And again, what I don't understand is Joe Mixon punched a girl on video years ago. He was suspended for a year and came back to play. Gundy does this and his career at Oklahoma is over. I just think there should be some sort of, apology, which he did do, and some sort of understanding of the situation, and then a feeling of how it affects the team and the players, rather than just going up to some guy in a suit up in administration who says this is going to be bad for us. The 5% loud people looking to be outraged are going to be outraged, and we're going to lose boosters and all that stuff. It's just a bad decision.
I have a couple thoughts on it, and I'm glad you made me aware of it before we went on today. First of all, quickly address the Joe Mixon thing. To me, becomes the coach's decision. Shows you the support the coaches had for a player, because that was the coaching staff that decided we're going to keep Joe Mixon on staff. Right? This is a step up. They may have consulted with
Oh, they had to.
Yeah,
but this was Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops is not Brian Venables. Bob Stoops ran Oklahoma.
Right.
So it went up,
but they let him make
punishment.
Right.
There was a punishment, but the kid was allowed to come back. And now, Joe Mixon has gone on to be a successful NFL player, and his career could have been ruined. And that's much more egregious to me than reading someone else's text. But go ahead.
Yes. So I think that shows how the coaches support their players, and that's my main point on that, because they could have easily been done with him there, right? So that, and he's part of that staff, and he was part of that staff as well. So that to me is a situation where you already know, obviously, that the coaching staff is very supportive of their players to begin with. So his statement, two things on it. I don't think if exactly what you mentioned happened, then I don't think he should have been fired for that. He made an error. Again, he shouldn't have made that error. I don't think he should be fired back. And I think the players in support of him is a huge indicator of how much they believe in him and trust him and know that he has their back. So I think that's a big part of it. The second thing is, to me, and this has nothing to do with the decision, but how someone doesn't understand that you're not going to read that word, okay, is mind-boggling to me. So that is mind-boggling to me, and I've coached for a long time and been around players, administrators. That is just any person would understand that has any level of intellectual capability that is a no-no, right? So he could have read right up to that point, said there's a word here that everybody knows that we shouldn't say. That's the next statement, and then read the rest of it, right? If he's trying to make a point. And my only issue is that he knows darn well that he just because he got emotional and was upset about something that was going on, that that's a no-no. So that's my only thing. I don't think he should have been fired. I think he made a mistake. I think it was uh, um, since the players are so supportive of him, it tells me that obviously he cares a lot about them. They care about him. Those things all are true. The one thing that I would say, it's just that's just so stupid to me. That is so stupid that someone in today's day and age at that level of position wouldn't know that's going to come back to haunt you. I mean, you do a lot less as far as I don't know, you berate a player, some reporter is writing about you, right? So you got to know that that's going to be an issue. And obviously, ultimately, I think that part of it played into him resigning, but I don't think he should have put himself in that position. Having said that, is a fireable offense. I don't think it's a fireable offense if the players felt that this was him purely reading, and not true, which it sounds like it is the case. But my that's why I have two sides on that. Like that's to me is just, it's just dumb. I mean, I don't know that someone should be fired for really being dumb, but that's really just dumb.
Yeah, it's very dumb, and it had the players come out. So first of all, a lot of people suspiciously said this can't be the first incident. This is the tipping point or something like that. So I dug into that a little bit, and the players coming out in support of this speaks the opposite. This isn't the tipping point. This isn't something that's been happening over and over again, and he did it again, and now we're tired of it. So to me, the understanding is it was a one-off, and I get what you're saying, and it's just when you're, and I'm not defending him, but I'm saying what I've read things out loud that I haven't written
right
when I'm angry and emotional, and when I'm angry and emotional, I'm reading it, and I'm plowing through it without any perspective as to what it says.
right
Almost like, oh, so this is so important. This is what you had to text, blah, 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 and then read it verbatim. And then right after you make the mistake, you're like, oh, sometimes you go, now, mostly when you're reading stuff aloud, you see what's coming.
right
But there are circumstances where you're very emotional and you don't see what's coming. There's no excuse for it. He's apologized for it for sure. And the players are the key here. The players are the key
I
here.
think the
If
players are the key.
yeah, if they weren't coming out in support of him, then I would say, okay, he's got to go, get rid of him, because there's more to this. But we'll
Right.
see. Oklahoma's got a big decision to make here because, everybody talks about the woke community and cancel culture and all this stuff. You make one mistake and you're gone, and there's no forgiveness, so there's no apology, there's nothing. Oklahoma has a real decision to make here because boosters, players, former players, people who know him, people who are very tied into the Oklahoma football culture, want him retained. So now these administrators that made this decision in a vacuum, because they're not football people, they're not athletic department people. Now they
And to
have
be
to
fair, they're
figure
just
this out.
to be fair, and I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for a million years. I'm very anti the system. I'm completely anti cancel culture, completely anti this woke stuff.
Right.
To be fair, from an administrator standpoint, this is put on your plate, and you just see this from the surface. I think you have to. I think that's what you're saying. They're going to have to dig a little bit more on this um, because they just see it, and I think what happens is their first thought goes exactly where you said. Oh my God, everybody's going to be all over us. This is going without knowing anything, and then they may think the thing that I said. okay, which I would not penalize someone on that capacity, but I am not an administrator, so I don't, understand really kind of the depths of what they have to deal with on that standpoint. But they may have looked at it like that is just so stupid. I mean,
Hmm.
so stupid. Like, do we even want to deal with now? As a player, you play for this guy, and he's been around a long time, and he's helped so many players be successful. Heisman Trophy winners. His quarterback room was unbelievable. Like, so he was a great player. It's you know that he cares about his players, so it's just like it's kind of like one of those mind-boggling things. Like, I I wouldn't fire somebody for it unless there was something else behind it. Because of the fact that I would say, hey, let's talk to the players. Was this a one-off thing? Blah 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 blah. And was he really just reading it? And if that was the case, then it wouldn't be fireable. The other thing though is just, man, like you got to be that. That's just dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so dumb. It's so I don't believe he's racist. I don't believe any of those things. Okay. I know him to know? No. But I'm just saying I don't believe that. Just seeing how long he's been around, how many players he's been around, how many players support him. But then I say, how could someone that is that wildly successful, and people do it all the time, just do something so stupid? That's just stupid. And someone should not lose their job for being stupid, but it's crazy to me. And as an administrator, a person who's an administrator, I can tell you this: if it came across my desk, okay, if it came across my desk, someone worked for me that was done at a camp, I would go and talk to the people that were there, right, and say what or on my team, talk to the players and say what was the context of everything, and then make my decision on it. I would have a long conversation with that person and say, that is so stupid. Like, if we do forgive you and decide, and you decide you want to come back, like I question how smart you are to be in such a high position, making millions of dollars,
Hmm.
okay, and have control in the lives of players. That's my only thing. And I am anti woke culture. I've said this before. I hate the fact that we want to cancel somebody, but I would want to talk to them about, um, you know, uh, the thought process that would go into that.
And I'm sure they did. I mean, there's no way that they made this decision without discussing this with him. And I could picture. I've been in corporate meetings before, not about this, of course, but about other things where, someone will say, well, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. And this goes all the way back to working at an insurance company when I
Yep.
was in my 20s. And human resources will pull you in and say, listen, we found this fantasy football, you know, thing on your computer. What are you doing? Are you running fantasy football instead of working? Why is this on your work computer? Blah blah blah. And and then they tell you it's stupid. Don't have it on there. Do that at home. Whatever. Do it on your lunch on your separate computer. And then you wait for them to tell you what they're going to do. Okay, so this time we're going to let it go. Next time you're gone, or we're going to suspend you, or we're going to fire you.
Hmm.
Whatever. So I've been on the other side of those meetings. So I'm sure he was told all these things. I don't know about the word stupid being used. These are administrators who think they're, very cultured and smart, and most of them aren't. But
Agreed.
but I don't think a true like real investigation was done based on the players' outrage, because I don't think they talked to the people in the room. I don't think they talked to the players. I don't think they talked to. I think they talked to him. I think they talked to Venables, and they said that we have a zero tolerance policy here, and he's got to go. So I don't think they dug in, and I think this is going to play out interestingly, because they're going to have to dig in a little bit, and they might dig in and stick with this, that this just isn't what we accept, and we're taking a no tolerance policy towards this, regardless of what the players think. I don't think I think they made a rash decision and a quick decision, and I think that's something that shouldn't have been done. Um, because now, if they reverse it, then you're going to have the woke people saying, "Oh, so that's acceptable."
There's no way it's getting reversed.
Right.
I'm giving you my like, and this is look. I've been a head coach. Now my administrations are high schools, right? And I've been brought in for yelling at a kid the way that they would. I've been suspended for yelling at a player the way that they didn't like. Okay, and I've seen these kind of things happen, and to me, and these are minor things I'm talking about, like things I've been brought in for, where most people would think this is crazy, this is minor, right? So, I just know they're not gonna. I'd be so shocked if they went back on their decision. I mean, I'd be flabbergasted if they did.
Hard to walk it back at this point.
It would be hard to walk back, and then
it would be refreshing if they did, though. If somebody actually said, "Listen, we looked at this, we decided that this is unacceptable, but this shouldn't."
I call it a no-win
career.
I call that word is a no-win if it comes out of somebody's mouth in a public setting for anybody. That's the way I look at it. Like, it is a no-win. The person who says it, I'm talking in a non-malicious way in this context that's going to be a no-win for him, and that's going to be a no-win for anyone whose desk that comes across if they do something that like is in the forgiveness realm, okay? And I just think it's going to be a no-win because someone else is going to bring it. It all comes down to, like, who's going to bring you to task on your job, right? Like, I mean, the bottom line with this is, so Venables obviously has to walk that right up to the top, right? That's the first thing he has to do, because if Venables didn't walk it up to the top, that could be his best friend. He could, if he doesn't walk it up to the top, the next person they're walking up to the top is him, right? So he's got to walk, and I would call this the Joe Pa effect, right? The totally different scenario, obviously so much worse. I mean, I'm not going to put the two things in context. It's ridiculous to put the two things in context. One was non-maliciously done. One was obviously a horrific thing. But that's the Joe Pa effect of not, like, taking the steps forcibly enough in order. And these administrators, I'm not there, but my guess is whoever the board of trustees are has told these guys any of these things go on with a coach or player for any reason, even if it's nothing, you're better off just parting ways.
Gone. And the difference between the Joe Pa situation and now is social media.
Yep.
There's a large fear of, a populist opinion against or for whatever decision you make. If you retain him, then you're going to have this side of the people saying, "Oh, that's acceptable. Great, you guys are racist." If you get rid of him, then you have these people saying, "Oh, I can't believe we just live in a society where you're canceled so immediately." That wasn't the case at Penn State. You could push things under the rug back in the day. But now there's this fear of, hey, what if one of the players in that meeting comes out on social media and tweets it out? What if this comes to light through a player talking to a fellow student who puts it out on social media and it gets picked up by the media? The fear of the crowd, with the pitchforks and the torches, storming the administration is different now than it ever was. And I will tell you this, and I think I said this, I don't know, maybe it was on Full Ride last week, maybe it was on this podcast, but so many things in the years prior to social media were swept under the rug and able to be kept quiet. Now it just can't be. And look at the Mixon thing. I mean, that was what, 7 years ago. If that wasn't on video, we handled in a different situation. But it was on video, and that video went viral on social media. So they had to do certain things differently than they normally would have. So social media changes everything.
Oh, look at what happened to Ray Rice. Okay, like Ray Rice. I have two things I think you find, and they're totally different things. These are all different things. So I'm not, people who listen to this, I'm not saying that one is like the other, but these are instances where things had to get handled. Ray Rice lost his career, and obviously what he was doing was off the wall. Okay. lost his career because it was on social media and it looked so bad. People have done worse things than Ray Rice, or at least as bad. Okay. But if they didn't catch it on video and it was hearsay, there was a limit to the amount of punishment that they had. And the other one I'll bring up, which I thought it has nothing to do with someone doing anything bad, but I thought where administration took a stance against someone unfairly was, and he ended up winning the money. Kevin Ollie, if you remember when he was the UConn head coach, they were, they wanted to force him out. They were trying to force him out. He was a Jim Calhoun prodigy, won the national championship. Then for whatever reason, they weren't happy with him, and they used these NCAA allegations to try to force him out and not pay him. Right. So I say this to say, in each instance, people above the top, because of that whole Joe Pa effect, have taken these, like, anytime they think that something's going in the wrong direction, they've taken these harsh stances and like just pushed people out. And honestly, right, or some in Kevin Ollie's case, they were wrong. They didn't want to pay him. That was wrong. They didn't pay him. He ended up winning the money back, and I was glad when he won the money back. But there was something they didn't like. They wanted to move him. He didn't want to move on. That was a big deal about it. And each one of these things, these are things that are happening, but it's the administration just takes the they're always going to take the total stance of just like they wash their hands with everything.
So let's move to something more fun. which do you want, the edge or the edge list, or the
well, I love the edge thing. I think it's so great.
Scary, or the not scary. We could do the not scary next week if we want to, because we're getting close. So the edge list, I've been doing positional lists, top 50 lists, and all this stuff, and the edge list is fun because people love that. And I had to differentiate between guys who rush off the edge and guys who are even defensive ends who are, bigger, stronger against the run, aren't pass rushers, or, obviously D tackle. So the next list is DLs, non-edge, which are those guys. But these are the guys that come off the edge and wreak havoc on the quarterback. And Will Anderson is an easy number one. Everybody agreed with that. And then after that, it's just 2 through 50 is all scrutinized. It's crazy.
Will Anderson, did anyone even question that? I'm curious.
Nope. No. There wasn't one person who said that, and I have Nolan Smith number 2, and a lot of people felt that was too high. But there wasn't one person that questioned Will Anderson. Absolutely. And it's the only list I've done where there hasn't been a question at the top. Obviously, you Bijan Robinson, Travion Henderson, C.J. Stroud, and Bryce Young, and wide receivers. There was no question whatsoever. Even Michael Mayer versus Brock Bowers at tight end. But this one, no question. Now, Nolan Smith, that's a question. Dallas Turner at 5. He was great in the playoff last year. This is mostly projection. Miles Murphy being a little bit lower than most people expected. Ochon Mathis being in the top 10. Transfer from TCU to Nebraska. Lots of discussions on all these guys. But the consensus is this is a really good edge group, like a really good group. And the last few defensive line classes, I think, have been pretty solid in college football, and it just continues. Last year we had Hutchinson, Walker, you had Jermaine Johnson. You had a bunch of guys that were potential top 10 picks. And I think in this class, you've got the same thing. Anderson's going to be a top 2-3 pick. And then after that, we're going to see where the rest of these guys fit in.
This should be the all-time top names group. These names are fantastic. Chop Robinson.
That's an easy one. That's not his real name.
I love it.
He goes by Chop now.
How about Praise? Is that his name?
Yes, and so Chop
awesome.
was a guy. Chop was a guy who committed to Maryland under Loxley. It was a big time commit for them, and then decided to transfer to Penn State. There's a lot of transfers on here, a lot of guys, and then there's out west you get a lot of hyphenated, difficult to pronounce names. It's just that's always the case. It seems there's going to be a lot of guys that right now you're going to look at this list and be like, I've never heard of that guy, and you're going to hear a lot more, especially at Kansas State and Washington. Those aren't like heavy promoted programs, but they've got some ballers and some players, especially on the edge. And then there's guys on this list, the Jack Sawyers of the world that are going to emerge. Ohio State fans wanted JT Tuimoloau on this list, and he's on my D-line list because he's 280 pounds. So when that list comes out, that's going to go crazy because people are going to go, how'd you miss? They're going to read D-line. They're not going to see non-edge. And they're going to say, how'd you miss Will Anderson? You're an idiot. And I had one more on Twitter say, Isaiah Foskey's not on this list. Good job, Farrell. Nice research. And he's obviously right on the list, very, very high. So I called that guy a jackass. And he's like, oh, geez, I didn't think you were so sensitive. I'm like, you just called me a moron. So I'm going to call you a jackass. It's who you are. Because you can't read. Don't jump on Twitter and start yelling at me without reading.
Oh my God, that's so funny. You could do a podcast on mean tweets at Farrell.
I've done that before. Back in the day, we did a mean tweets. We did it for 2 signing days in a row. It was awesome, and they were just evil, horrible. It was funny. They made me wear a suit. I was in New York. We were doing some video stuff for signing day, and I read them. And I'm not as funny as like Brady when he does it because he's got a better personality than I do. And they're not as mean as the Brady and Mannings of the world will get. But there are a lot of mean tweets. And I'll interact. I tweeted this out, if you notice, the second time. And I said, I'll interact with smart people. And then, of course, I interacted with the idiots. One Florida guy said Gervon Dexter should be on here. He's a D tackle. So I called him a moron, and then the Notre Dame guy I called a moron. And then people are like, I thought you said you were going to interact with smart people. And I said, I can't help myself. I can't. If you're so stupid, if you're so dumb, where you shouldn't even have a phone, much less a Twitter app, I have to respond to you. So
this is where you must love being an entrepreneur.
I do, because you know what? I
can
can't
say what you feel.
Dame. I can't call Notre Dame fans back in my previous life. I can't call them stupid. I can't call them morons. I can't do anything like that. Because then it's like people will email your boss and your boss's boss and says, Farrell hates Notre Dame and he's disrespecting me. I pay $9.99 a month and I'm not supposed to be called a jackass. When they called me a moron or even worse. So I can't fire back, but now I can. Yeah, I'm not making as much money. But I will tell you this, you're going to hear my true feelings. So if you are stupid, you're going to get called stupid. And the cool thing was some players reached out to me about this list. And I, Nick Herberg is one of them on Wisconsin. I reached out to, he followed me after this list. And I DM'd him and I said, hey, man, congrats, for being so high on the list. And he said, I didn't really feel I had a good season last year. And that's the type of attitude that I kind of love.
Right.
Because he's one of those Wisconsin defensive guys. He's just the J.J. Watt type where nothing's ever good enough, working hard is never stopping, and always excelling to get better. And your last season was a bad season. You got to, T.J. Watt the same way. You got to do it better this year. So that sort of humbleness, but also some other guys that I reached out to or reached out to me, they were excited about it. Because they're getting the praise. Ali Gay is not one of them who reached out to me or I talked to, but for him to be so high on this list when he's being overlooked because BJ Ojulari is the one who gets all the attention, that's a guy that I really looked at hard, and I'm like, man, he's very, very good, and no one talks about him because of that other guy. Beal on this list at Georgia, way down at 46 or whatever.
Yep.
Nope, nobody talks about him. They talk about Nolan Smith. And I think Nolan Smith has a higher ceiling, and he's going to be a better NFL draft pick. But right now, you can make an argument that Beal's a better football player. So I love doing these lists, man. They're a pain in the ass, though. They take forever. Because one mistake, if you spell a kid's name wrong or you miss that he transferred to a school, or if you accidentally put a kid up there who's injured. I did the O-line list. And Christian Mahogany at Boston College was a great offensive lineman. And I knew that he was injured. I knew he'd blow out his ACL, and I knew he was going to miss the whole season. But that's something from a national perspective you can miss. How would I know that otherwise if I didn't dig into this? And then if I put him on the list, like, oh, you suck, you're so stupid, he's out for the year, great list, jerk. And I'm like, one mistake on these lists, man, it's never ending, grief. And people just like to pile on. So the first thing people do on this list is they look for their team's players. The second thing they look for are mistakes. And maybe it's 1A, 1B. And if they're satisfied with where their players are and there's no mistakes, then it's crickets. You will not hear from them whatsoever. They will consume the list and like it. But if
Yep.
their player's not ranked where they want or there's a mistake, they will be sure to let you know in 85 different ways.
Well, if you're an alumni and played at UConn like I did, you just know that none of your players are going to be on the list.
Except last year, you had the D tackle.
I know. Yes.
It was
Yep.
really good,
He
but
was
he would have made
really
the D
good.
tackle list last year because the D line list is coming out, and that's harder for me because I'm really digging into these depth charts. I'm really digging into, what role they play, and I'm not going to get it all right, because roles change. You go from a 4-3 to a 3-4. All of a sudden, your defensive tackle is playing a different technique, and he's more of a pass rusher. He's not on the edge, but he's playing a 5 straight up, and that makes him more of an edge than if he's a 3 tech and a 4-3. So all that stuff has to be looked at and determined, and it sucks. The linebackers will be easier because I'm not differentiating between inside and outside, and there were some OLBs that are edge guys that I kept off this list because Will Anderson plays a linebacker position, but he's an edge. Whereas other guys that can rush the passer, I mean, Trenton Simpson is an excellent pass rusher at Clemson. You kept him at linebacker because he's not a pure edge. And then the DBs, I'm just going to put the corners and the safeties together. And then I'll be done, right? And then I got to start it all over again and tweak the 50 quarterback list because now we've got quarterback positions being determined. Who's going to win Texas, LSU, Texas A&M, on and on and on, Michigan. So I'm going to have to redo and tweak that. It's just, if this paid full time to just do these 50 lists, it'd be awesome because they take so long and it's really worth a good 8-hour day. Unfortunately, it's just for your social media consumption, the people who follow me, just so they can yell at me. And that hasn't paid the bills yet, but eventually it will.
I want them to be
Scary.
able to yell at you about one more thing before we go.
Yeah.
My two biggest glaring ones.
Go ahead.
Well, one I agree with. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how can you not? Number one is the most agreeable of all.
Right.
If you were alive in the 90s and 80s and know what Nebraska was and where they are now, and obviously their coach was one of the legends of that time. He was late 90s, 2000, but he was one of the legends from them. So the fact that Nebraska is struggling to get there, I agree with that. I mean, there's.
I want the disagreements though. Give me those.
So I would say that to me, I mean, the number 5, number 10, I disagree with. Number 8, I disagree with. Why am I not able to see your? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I don't know. There it is.
All right, there it is. I think 14 should be like 2.
Well, see, here's the thing. You notice those last 3 are old, Big East schools. And people don't remember when Syracuse was good. They don't remember McNabb and Graves and, like we do. And Virginia Tech, a lot of people don't remember Brian Randall following Michael Vick and how dangerous they were. And, Stanford to another extent. And Louisville, obviously with Lamar. But yeah, Syracuse is so far removed that I put them so down the list. Washington as well, because you remember the Steve Entman teams.
Yes.
How great they were and scary they were. Disagreeing with Auburn, though, is funny to me because Auburn's not scary. They're just not. They were with Cam. They have been with Gus. Harsin last year was not scary whatsoever, and this year there's no fear factor. Now I know you're going to say, well, they almost beat Alabama, and they should have. But Tank Bigsby runs out of bounds. I mean, that stays in bounds. They beat Alabama, but just to me, that's
scary because they have the ability. They still have, even though they're
players.
Yes, they still have players. So I think that's what leaves them scared. Now, Penn State is scary to me for a different reason.
Okay.
They should
2016 was the last time they were scary.
Who? Penn State, you mean?
Yeah, 2016 is when they won the Big Ten. They should have gone to the playoff, but since then they've been don't scare anybody now. The White House scares them.
They also have the ability to win a game. What I would actually argue with Auburn and Penn State is underachieving. So that's more the word I would use is less. But in the same realm as Texas, Florida State, when they hired Deion Sanders, which they're probably going to do at some point eventually,
it'll be scary.
Then maybe they'll have a chance to be scary again. I don't know. See what people don't know, and you know this obviously, but people don't realize Bobby Bowden made Florida State what they are. They were nothing before, and they've struggled. Jimbo Fisher carried it because he was obviously of the same trade, right? But he got out because he saw what was happening. I mean, you can't tell me that even Jimbo Fisher didn't say to himself, this really was Bobby Bowden that put Florida State where it is. I carried it. He had the ability as a coach to do it because he's a excellent coach. But he could see how hard it was getting, and that's my opinion. I think they almost need another disciple of the honestly, Deion's a disciple of the Bowden tree, right? Because he played for him. He knows what Bowden did to get players like him there to go there. No one went to Florida State before Bobby Bowden. And now it's back to where it was. I mean, that's really what you got going on.
Yeah. And before I run, because I got a 1 o'clock, I agree with you on 5, and I'll tell you 7. Those two are going to be scary again very soon. Lincoln Riley's going to make USC scary. But, when you talk about the Sark days and the Kiffin days and the Helton days and all that stuff, it's just not scary. Nothing scary about them since Pete Carroll. And Miami, from Coker on, into Golden, into, the mess with Manny Diaz, haven't been scary. But they will be. Those two, 5 and 7, will be scary again. Maybe 6. Heupel's got them offensively, exciting. But this is a very interesting list. It's on my website. I wrote why for each one of them, and this really gets a lot of people going. But as usual, I have booked myself, so I got to run.
Let's
so
let
promo, myfootballcamps.com/D1. DM us on any platform. We will respond to you and talk to you. It's well worth it.
Absolutely. The great discussion today, Mike. Have a great day, bud.
All right. You too. See ya.
All right.